Okay, today we're going to do a collar with a collar band. My daughter requested how to do a collar with a collar band. The collar band is what you commonly see on a men's shirt. It has a band or a stand and then the collar. So I took the collar and I stitched from the center out and then from the center out, reinforced the corners and trimmed the corners and pressed it so the seam rolled right to the center. And then you can either edge stitch or top stitch, whichever way you want to finish it. So I want to do my little new funky crazy little collar. I'm going to use my foot as my guide and then I'm going to top stitch my collar. And I pulled out the old workhorse. If you're a beginner sewer, it's a good idea to buy your old used sewing machine. I'm going to just use the edge of my foot for my top stitch. When I get near the intersection, I want to walk the wheel with my hand so I can control where my stitch go. And I always want to back stitch at the beginning and the end. And since I'm attached my collar to a collar band, I also want to stitch these seams together at the bottom of my collar so they don't move. I think it's a good idea when you're first learning how to sew to get an old used sewing machine. I bought this one at a resale store for 75 bucks, probably about 10 years ago, and it still works like a horse. And you can still find all the parts for it. So now I want to join the two collars together. So I'm going to always take my pieces and I take them and fold them in half and find my center and notch. So here's a notch at my center back. And then I have the notches on my collar. I have at my center back, I match those all together, and then I want to sandwich these together. So I'm going to find all my centers, and if I'm not sure, I'm going to pin these together. Here it's at, take them and fold them in half and line them up. A little snip, and then we'll join all three together. Pin them together. Sometimes you may want to sew the one collar onto the collar band by itself first, so we can do that. Let's do that. I had these lined up together, and then I want to stitch them together, these two, and I'm going to just do it at 1/4 of an inch, and then I'll join all three of them together. So I can make sure everything is lining up and my collar don't slip and move when I go to sandwich them all together. I'm going to check and make sure they're coming out the exact same place, because I don't want one part of my collar coming out in a different place than the other part of my collar. So now I'm going to match these up together. And because they have a curve in the collar, on the collar band, I'm going to stitch from my center, just past my center. I'll line these up together at my center. My seam allowance for this project is 5/8 of an inch. So I want to start sewing at 5/8. I'm not going to back stitch. I'm going to stitch these together at 5/8. And because it has a curve in it, I want to start at the center and do the same thing on the other end. So you want to take your time and go around the curve. And we're going to back stitch at the end. And then I'm going to start on the center, just past the center on the other end. And do the same. You really don't have to back stitch because we're letting the stitches overlap. You want to follow the curve. Because we want them both to come out with the same curve. See here, I want to go and trim a little bit around the curve shape. You can trim away half of the seam. It's already stitched together more than once, so we don't have to worry about it unraveling and falling apart. And clip a little bit around that curve. Now the one side of my collar already stayed stitched, so I stayed stitched this at a 1/2 inch so I can control exactly when I want to finish my collar, where it's going to line up at. So since I have this much finished, and I really want my collar for my neck to be red, I want to find my center back of my shirt, and then I want to line these up together. So I'm going to just show you how to do this stay stitch. I'm going to start here, catch that seam, and stitch from end to end at 5/8 of an inch. Just a stay stitch. So now I want to match my collar. So I want to pin my right side to the inside. I'm going to match it up at my center back neck. And then I want to line these up till they match up at my center fronts. These fabrics are different, so one stretched a little bit more than the other, but you take your time and be careful, make sure everything is lining up and meeting and match it perfect. And always trim all the little extra interfacing and stuff off if there's any hanging off. So you should match up all the notches. Match up your shoulder seam. Pin everything in place. And this a match on the other side, and we'll do exactly the same. So they're going to line up right up to the seam, that intersection. So we don't want to stitch past there. We don't want the front button band hanging off past there. So we're going to line them up. You want to back stitch to reinforce it, and then we're going to sew the collar on at 5/8 inch seam allowance. So sew up to the pin and pull the pins out. And be careful not to get any puckers while you're sewing. So if you see it's about to make a pucker, you can always move the fabric around and maneuver it so that you don't sew a pucker. And we can continue this to back to the other end to our center front, and we want them to line up and match right there at the front. And then we back stitch center front. Alright, so here's the little tricky part that I like to do. So I can have a nice finish at the front of my collar band. Remember that we pinned the wrong side, the right side of the collar band to the wrong side of the shirt. So I like to take and go and flip my collar band on top of my shirt so that my shirt is sandwiched between my collar band and my collar band. So I just take it and flip it over and line it up at the front. So I'm going to stuff the collar in between so I can have a real nice finish on the front edge of my shirt. So I'm going to line these up again and stitch it at 5/8 inch seam allowance again. Keep it stuffing up in there, the collar in between, because we sandwiching this. So I call the two collar bands the bread and the collar is the bologna. So I'm going to stitch this together all the way to this first notch right here. I want to back stitch so it don't come apart. I want to trim some of the bulk out of the front of the button band there. So check, pull it out and check and make sure it's right first before you trim it. You don't want anything to be caught up in there. Too late if you cut it, it's not going to grow back. So I'll pull my collar band out, collar out, and then I have a nice finish right on the front of my collar. So this is the inside of my shirt, and this is the outside of my shirt, but it's finished on the outside and the inside. And then I will go and take this seam and turn it under, and then I get edge stitch and top stitch to finish the rest of my collar and collar band. And you have a real nice finish. This is my crazy shirt, my collar, and my collar band.